Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Dirk Beveridge here, founder of Unleashed WD and the executive producer of We Supply America. Thanks so much for joining us for this another version of Unapologetic Live on this Thursday. And today we have an absolute, really unique, different, and great program. So thanks for coming in. There is absolutely no doubt. I think we can all agree that there's no doubt that we are living in an ever-changing world. And while the general narrative is doom and gloom, right? Risk and disruption, some individuals, like our guest today, Tom Gale, the CEO of Modern Distribution Management, believes that we're on the cusp of a new renaissance. That gets me excited. When somebody believes like that, I know I need to learn from them. And this is a belief where threats turn into opportunities, constraints become catalysts for driving innovation. And today, on today's Unapologetic Live, Tom and I are going to explore some of the changes that are happening right now throughout distribution, how they can potentially impact your business, and how every one of us can seize these opportunities for change and innovation. And it is going to be a dynamic, fantastic conversation for the next 40 minutes or so, 30, 40, 60 minutes. We're going to see how this conversation goes with the CEO of Modern Distribution Management. I am just honored that Tom Gale is joining us. So welcome, everybody. Come on in, and we're going to get started in 2 minutes. Come on in. Let me know that you're here. Say hello in the comments. Let me know that you're here, and we're going to get started in 2 minutes because I got to do the Dirk dance. See ya. Good morning, everybody. Again, welcome to this really special edition of Unapologetic Live, where we're going to pull in just in a few moments the CEO of Modern Distribution Management. I see some of you are starting to come in. Thanks so much for joining us. Let me say hello. Chris, I believe that's you up in Maine, I believe. Great to see you here. Tom Gale, you're in the green room. Look at what Ted Stark has to say. Dirk and Tom together, two of my favorite people. This session's going to be mind-blowing. Happy Thursday. Tom, I got to talk about that mind-blowing in all caps because Ted's never said that when I've been on alone. So, okay, I get it. Marty, great to see you, my friend. Thank you for joining us. I see you're spreading the word about these unapologetics as well. Thank you for doing so. Susan Merlo, our good friend, both Tom's my good friend. Great to see you, Susan, and the work you're doing in digital transformation and automated marketing and the like is just fantastic. And Tish, great to see you as well. Thank you for inviting the RV to Denver in September. We will absolutely talk. So thank you so much for being with us. So those of you that are here, we know that we do live in an ever-changing world, right? And these changes are absolutely impacting our businesses, our lives, the way we live, the way we work, the way we play. And if you watch the news, if you listen to social, there's a lot of doom and gloom out there. But individuals like our guest, Tom Gale, believes that we're entering a new renaissance. And when we take that mindset, we bring this different worldview, we can turn threats into opportunities. We can turn constraints into catalysts for innovation. And that's the type of things that we're going to talk about with Tom today. He's got some great views on entrepreneurial mindsets, new distribution business models, the role of talent and leadership and culture in our businesses today. And we're going to absolutely get into that. Now, this is, as most of you know, part of our conversation with We Supply America. Those of you that are new, let me tell you very, very quickly. Last year, as 2 weeks to flatten the curve we're entering the second year, I decided there was a need and an opportunity to go out and champion the noble calling of distribution, to champion the fact that you are the backbone of this country. We don't have what we have in this society without the goods and services passing through your docks and on your trucks and through your warehouses and through the goodness and the nobleness of what you do in your distribution businesses. So we took this RV, the We Supply America RV, across the country, and we spent 97 days on the road, traveling over 16,500 miles, 35 different states, 34 different distribution businesses. And guess what? Yep, we're doing it again. We're doing it again. And in about 30 days, we're rolling out with season 2 of We Supply America. And after Tom's and my conversation, I'm going to tell you all about that, because a lot of great things are happening. But even just to set the stage, to ask you to stay around with Tom and I, and then let me introduce our plans for season 2. Let me just give you a quick teaser of season 2. Here you go. In a post-pandemic world, leadership is being redefined. Forces outside of our control and forces within our business are calling us to be different leaders. Both new and veteran leaders throughout distribution are showing the way forward. These leaders are the noble generation. These leaders we need to meet. These leaders we need to learn from. These leaders are why we are going back on the road this summer. This is We Supply America, Season 2. And yes, I am jazzed to get back out on the road and meet you. And you heard in there that the theme of this year is the noble generation. Coming out of last year, the noble generation of leadership. Coming out of last year, we had this premise that the very nature of leadership is changing more rapidly than most of us realize. And I think Tom and I are going to talk about this vision of leadership, if you will, from his perspective. We're in the midst of what I believe is going to be landmark research for distribution. Let me just share with you 2 data points that are coming in from our research. Over 200 individuals have participated in this. What we have found is that 77% of us throughout distribution believe that the very nature of leadership is changing as a result of COVID and other disruptive forces. 77%. Second one I'll just share with you right now is 83% of us believe that the way we lead our organizations coming out of the pandemic must be different than the way we led going into the pandemic, which brings us to today's conversation. The very nature of leadership is changing. And there are so many lessons that we can learn by getting out on the road and talking to just brilliant individuals like our guest, Tom Gale. Tom Gale is the CEO of Modern Distribution Management Magazine. Let me pull up that website for you, if you don't mind, Modern Distribution Management. I use the word, I believe they are the pulse of the industry. When you go to their website right there, they tell you industry news delivered. They are absolutely the pulse of this industry. You can go there, and it really should be a bookmark for all of us that we start our days to get the pulse of the industry. And the leader of that organization is our guest today, Mr. Tom Gale, CEO of MDM. Tom, good morning, my friend.
Dirk, good morning. Great to be with you.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I'm excited for this. It's been a long time coming. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and after that, I don't know, after Ted Stark's comments, and I mean, there's a lot of pressure here, Dirk.
There is a lot of pressure. You betcha. And you know what? If anybody can handle the pressure, I know that it is you. All right. So, Tom, we do have a lot to talk about, and I set the stage. I have this premise that the very nature of leadership is changing. The research we're in the middle of is absolutely proving that others are seeing the same thing. There are so many disruptive forces out there. I use the word, there's doom and gloom, right? I mean, the number of challenges from labor to supply chain issues to everything, right? There's a lot out there. And we can look at it as, oh my God, the doom and gloom, or with another mindset. And so let's dive into your thoughts, if you don't mind. And let's start with the word renaissance. You and I were having a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and you actually mentioned to me that you think that we in distribution might be entering into a new renaissance. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I want to give credit where credit is due, because that really came out of a conversation and a podcast that I did with Al Bates, very well known. And,
Yep.
Really, you talk about somebody who has been in the financial engine room of wholesale distribution in the United States for 40 years or more. Yeah. Understands every nut and bolt that really goes into creating successful companies. He talked about that, and really it was from a matter of the cycle that we're in right now, where and this happens every cycle, where the big guys, they put more feet on the street. They've got the resources to invest in digital, and then the smaller guys try to catch up. They just don't. They scramble. They might try to,
Yep.
save money, conserve cash. It's all the things that happen in a cycle.
Yep.
But his point was this: is that there's an opportunity here where basically you can dance around the elephants, and this cycle in particular, with everything that's taking place, and the proximity and the closeness and the relationships with customers,
yeah,
by far create a competitive advantage that can only get greater going forward. And I agree with that entirely. So that's really where that came out of.
Cool.
But I think there's a lot of things beyond that really contribute to that. If you take a look at, and I don't want to get too wonky here, but if you take a look at in 2021, the entire U.S. wholesale distribution sectors, 19 sectors of them,
yep,
it went over $7 trillion.
Yep.
The year before it was about 5.9 or so. So you had a 20+% increase. Now, some of that was inflationary, but a good part of that was demand, and everybody's experienced that. And this is the key, I think, is if you take a look at other distribution systems around the planet, this has the most flexibility and the most resilience to be responsive to any kind of shock, any kind of change, and respond much more quickly. And if you take a look at, and I would argue too, that's also an advantage, I think, for the smaller independent companies that can react much more quickly to changing conditions.
Yeah.
and be much more responsive faster to what customers are really experiencing in real time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating. So when you talk about, you mentioned the opportunities that are there for the smaller. You used words like resiliency, relationships, if you will, their ability to react, the localness, I think you mentioned as well. If you had to really, zero in on and say, guys, there is a lot of doom and gloom. There are a lot of challenges, but view this as your opportunity, right? To really seize the moment. Where would you be coaching us, Tom, to really zero in on to seize this Renaissance moment?
I think it's really stepping back and taking a look at the ways that have been successful up to now to operate,
Okay.
but really pushing yourself and your team to say, look, let's. It sounds a little trite, but let's disrupt ourselves before somebody else does.
Yes.
And that's, I think that's really what it boils down to. It's, with everything going on, people talk about this being a roller coaster economy and everything, all the disruption that's going around the world. I mean, we're in a bungee jump, kind of. I
Yeah.
mean, yesterday, markets jumped back up 3%, right, when the Fed, raised interest rates a half a point. So, I mean, we're just in this crazy, crazy time. This is really I believe in all of this, it's really a great opportunity to take a look at where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and really map out where you're going to get the growth over
I
these
love.
next 2 or 3 years.
Can I?
And here's the other thing. And, everybody talks about all the disruption and everything, but if you take a look at all the consensus forecasts, whether you listen to ITR Economics, or we work very closely with the University of Colorado Business School, who does forecasts for us. All the consensus forecasts are really painting a pretty strong picture here going forward. Now, nobody knows what's going to happen in the
Sure.
future. Nobody can predict it. But if you look at all the conditions, all of the factors, all of the demand, whether you're talking about in housing, industrial,
You bet.
all even in terms of where a lot of investment is going to be coming up here over 5 to 10 years in terms of electrification, and all of that's taken place. There's a huge amount of opportunity building up here that's really, I think every distributor can take advantage of and really position themselves to grow.
I love that. I really do, Tom. And you're bringing me back. Yesterday, I too had a conversation with the CEO of an independent industrial distributor, and he had told me about the strategy session he just led with his organization to do exactly what you're just saying. Right? Let's get away from the day to day. Let's get away from the news. Let's look at the opportunity that you're talking about. And he talked about sharing the economic outlook that they see and the opportunity for growth. And when he asked, you used the word crazy. And when he asked his team during that strategy session is to get crazy. And when he said, what are the opportunities in front of us? And they put them up on the board. He actually said, you're not thinking crazy enough. Let's go another level deeper to your point about disrupting themselves, right? So a key takeaway that I'm taking from you here is if we look at the economic forecasts that you mentioned, let's bring the mindset that there's opportunity to be seized, but the opportunity is in maybe taking a look at where we should be innovating within our organization to do things different, approach that market different. Is that fair, Tom?
Absolutely. And to me, Dirk, this is really about, I think it starts really taking a hard look at each of your core customer segments,
Okay.
and really understanding what the drivers are there, and then having those conversations internally about where are the opportunities, where are the threats that are coming up in terms of what's going on. How many of our customers are really transactional, and is that a really good place for us to be operating, rather than the customers who really are looking for partnerships and can grow?
Yeah.
And again, this gets hit on hard, but it's really around the services and everything else that's out there, that really define the differentiation that I think distributors bring the value to customers. And that's always been the case. I just think it's, with everything that's going on, with all the alternate sources that customers now have from a transactional basis to get product into their facility, there's a huge opportunity, I think, to not only differentiate on specific services, but let's bring in this whole factor around supply chain risk mitigation.
Yes.
I mean, that is, to me, that's the biggest opportunity here going forward for independent distributors.
So how should I, as an independent distributor, and I love what our friend CMO over at AD says to us here online. He says independent leadership advantage, Tom. And so, right. So Marty, absolutely agree. And I see Tom shaking his head. You just talked about, this advantage that we have, or opportunity as independents, this supply chain risk mitigation. Can you dive deeper into that for us a little bit? What do you mean by that? And what should I, as a leader in my business, be thinking about to mitigate this supply chain disruption?
So there are, I think there's a lot of different angles to that, Dirk. I think one of the keys here is, customers are really looking for the reliability, right? They don't want uncertainty.
Well, then,
And
yep.
so a lot of times their sourcing strategy is going to center around, okay, we've got a primary distributor, but who's our backup? What does that look like? And so I think there's opportunities to go in and have high level, serious conversations about partnerships that really can reinforce the ability for those distributors to proactively say, look, we are going to cover you. This is how we're going to do it, and be able to deliver, rather than kind of play this, I know we're going to get this percentage of the business, and then they're going to go shop and cover the bases that way. I think that's one aspect of it, but I also believe that the whole cost equation of offshoring is changing. Yep. Very, very quickly. And, we're all hearing stories about suppliers coming back, nearshoring, finding ways to bring it back much closer, control it, going to alternate countries. There's 1,000 different angles taking place there. But, from a strategy standpoint, I think it's an opportunity. And again, this isn't something I'm inventing. It's really about doing more with less, which from I think a distributor standpoint is saying, look, where's our sweet spot in terms of the suppliers that we can partner with to really deliver the value to customers, rather than just be this, hey, we're not a one-stop shop here, because you can't compete with the mega general line. And I don't honestly, I and MDM have always been a champion of independent distribution. We always will be, but I don't think this is like a good, bad situation. Right. There's different business models out there. There's different segments out there. This is such an incredibly fragmented marketplace out there. There's just, there's a huge amount of opportunity.
There's opportunity. Yeah, without question. You talked about this. I loved the first avenue you went down with the supply chain risk mitigation, right? And you talked about the opportunity to get closer to your customers, right? To get closer to your customers, and really drive this partnership rather than simply transactional. And again, I'm going to pull up Marty here real quick, because Marty, thanks for adding this, and everybody else, keep adding your thoughts. Marty says ecosystems of trust with customers, distributors, and suppliers. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at there, Tom. And so if I want to develop this ecosystem of partnership and trust, distributor, let's go to our customers' perspective, if you don't mind. Okay, Tom? I don't know if I can do that with 100% of my customer base, right? I've got to be selective. I've got to be strategic, I believe. And I believe You've got some views in terms of the role that analytics can and should be playing in our strategic approach here. A, is that right? And what are your views in terms of how we should be using analytics in this role in terms of who and how we're going to be partnering with our customers?
Well, but before we dive down that rabbit hole, Dirk, what I'd like to do is let's see if we can blow Ted's mind,
Okay.
and I want to talk about, because I think what where this really starts is supply chain distribution channels have always been defined as linear, right? You've got manufacturer, distributor, customer,
Yep.
and I think what's really shifted here in what what digital, what the pandemic has really accelerated is this. It's really blown that model and that paradigm into pieces,
Yeah.
and I think what's really reemerged is this ecosystem thinking.
Okay.
And again, this isn't something I've invented, but it's really where it's and this is where I think the real opportunity for distributors is it's a shift, and I think from this reactive service mode, and again, it's not I'm not being judgmental, because it's been an
Worked.
amazing business
Worked.
model, but I think going forward, that definition has to be more expansive. And what I mean by that is I think that distributors are in this perfect place to really be that trusted advisor and guide to customers, but at the same time create a ton of value for the suppliers that they can really form real partnerships on.
Mhm.
This is where things start to get into the data piece, and the
Thank you.
analytics piece,
Yep.
because I think you can't make that shift unless you really understand the customer behavior pieces, how their buying habits are shifting and what their preferences are, how they want to interact with their suppliers, and then how you can create value with the portfolio of suppliers supporting you, how you can go in and create that value.
Cool.
And again, I mean, I wish we could soundbite this into a couple easy steps, but this, I mean, I don't think there's anything that can really be solved well in life about that. So
So
that's just my take.
let me jump back a couple of years ago, and in the green room, you and I were talking about Waypoint Analytics and Randy McLean and the great work they do with Bruce Merrifield.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, we were down at some of their profit acceleration courses. And Tom, I still remember to this day, you're up there speaking. I'm kind of moderating the room and all that, and you made a statement about how hard this is. And after you left the stage, I'm pulling the room back together. And my comment back then was, and I'm going to make it again. My comment back then was, I don't think you heard the most important thing that Tom said. I said, what he said was, this is hard. There's no simple answer. And to me, that statement was one of the most important things you said, because in that is opportunity. In that hard is opportunity, because it's those who embrace the difficulty, those who embrace the need to think strategically, those that need to think about who are ready to rethink business models from linear to ecosystems, those who are ready to think deeply about the changing customer demands, those that are willing to think deeply about how technology and analytics are going to play such an important role going forward. Not easy, but those that are willing to do so, I think that's where the opportunity is. And would you agree that there's opportunity in what you just said, that there is no easy answer to this?
Yeah, absolutely. But I'd also like to bring this a little bit back to the street level a little
Yeah.
bit, because I mean, just from a reality standpoint, I think most people on this call, their primary go-to-market strategy is with an outside field sales force, right?
Yep.
And that is in such a state of flux right now,
Wow.
where in terms of, and again, this just ties into this whole shift in terms of more of an ecosystem mindset. I think the same applies in terms of the go-to-market strategy, in terms of taking a look at, I really believe that, and this has been a focus, as you know, Dirk, for the last 5-6 years, where we've been producing an annual conference around sales transformation, our
Yeah.
sales GPS conference, and we'll be doing that again in September here in Denver, and you're part of it. I'm really excited about that
Thank you
as
for bringing
well.
me in. Thank you. Yep.
And but here's where I'm going with this is the model for the future is I still believe that the outside sales team is going to have a core role. But if you take a look at the economics on it, it's broken at this point, and it really there's a lot of there are a lot of distributors who have been shifting to more inside sales roles. Certainly, the pandemic has shifted this in terms of the virtual engagement that's taking place, but also the fact that customers, and you look at, I mean, there's tons of people doing research and data. One of our keynote speakers is going to be Maria Bolden, vice president and the leader in sales at Gartner, and their data is just showing how quickly that customers want a digital first experience, essentially, because they can go and find what they need much more efficiently than interacting with a real salesperson. That doesn't mean that salesperson isn't important. It's a critical part, and particularly when you're talking about this value added that we've talked about and how you can differentiate what you're bringing to a customer.
Yeah.
Critically important, but it's a very different shift in terms of it's really going to be this hybrid sales model that's powered by digital and also by data analytics. That's really what it boils down to, I think, Dirk.
Powered by, and I was making notes. So I missed the two things. This hybrid model powered by. Say it again.
Yeah, so it's a hybrid sales model, and where you've got a role, a very defined, I would say, a better defined role for an outside sales person. You have inside sales and then you've got customer service responsibilities as well.
Yep.
And what you can do is essentially offload some of the less revenue generating functions, really have the outside salespeople have that business development role and going after that, or key account relationship role that's very important as well. That's not going away. But you can create a much more efficient sales process that you're just going to you're going to create a more profitable revenue engine for the operation.
You bet. I mentioned the research that we're in the midst of, and we're going to be publishing this in early June. And so I'm going through a lot of the responses. And just yesterday, I read, somebody on our survey in bold letters said route sales are dead. Coming out of the pandemic, route sales are dead. I think that speaks to what you're saying, right? We need to rethink this outside sales model. There's still going to be a role for them, right? But servicing versus creating is something I think we're going to have to talk about, right? Simply, following the route versus strategically understanding where those opportunities are. Again, I'm going to go back to analytics. It's such a key role in that. Tom, let me switch gears if you don't mind. All right. Well, before I do that, you mentioned that we're going to be able to dive deeper in this whole transformation of the sales model with the program that you got coming up in September, middle of September. You mentioned it real quick while we were there. Tell us about that. And I know registration is going to open in a week or so. Tell us about that, where people can learn information about that.
Absolutely. So we're taking a different tack this year. And before, all of our conferences around sales transformation have been really focused on that sales process. And we've got a lot of distributors who are coming back and telling their stories and sharing a ton of case studies about how people have really shifted their whole sales process, and it's created huge benefits for them going forward. September 26th, 27th. And if you're interested in this, just leave a note in the chat and we'll follow up with you. But like I say, we will be opening up registration here in the next week and a half. We're calling this conference Shift, the Future of Distribution. And in addition to focusing on this hybrid sales model in all the aspects of what that looks like, we're also bringing in digital and data analytics. Because this really, this is a business model shift that's taking place right now, and it also needs to be a team activity. This is really around getting everybody on the same page around where are we going to go and what does that look like? And so I think what we found, it's really important to have a common vocabulary around what are the roles of IT, of sales, how do we bring marketing into this? How can we integrate all this? Because I mean, every organization is becoming a digital organization. I mean, everybody's on that journey.
Yeah.
And so how can you really create the best model going forward? And there's no right answer. I mean, it's different for every single company.
Yep.
But what you can do is you can take a lot of ideas where people have been successful, and then you can craft the best path forward and the best strategy for how you're going to get there.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, Tom. So everybody put your information or just say MDM in the comments, and Tom and his team will follow up with you. I'm excited to be part of that. And it seems like you really are hitting a lot of hot buttons. Let me just put up some of the things, and then I want to pivot to another topic here that's I see an intersection here. I believe this is Chris up in Maine. She said, small is the new big business. Technology has leveled the playing field for the independent distributor, right? And I know you're going to be talking about that at Shift. I love what our friend, hello, Tom says to us, not from the inside of the box looking out, but from the outside looking in, really getting strategic is what I see there. Kathy Lundquist, thank you, Kathy, for being here. Kathy says self-service or practical relationship management will still be strategic, which ties, I think, into what Gary says here. Don't let the CRM and call logging replace relationships and selling. We are a people and relationship business. Without that, we may as well be the mass distributor. So I think at the intersection, Tom, of what some of these comments are saying is, yes, new business models, yes, technology, yes, strategy, yes, disruption, yes, economic forecasts. But in the end, we are a people business, I believe. And that brings us to talent. It brings us to leadership. It brings us to culture and the like. And I know you got some views on that. So what's going through your mind today relative to talent and competitive skill sets that are going to be needed going forward, if you don't mind?
So, and I think it's parallel, similar to what I was talking about, where there used to be this, top-down model and mindset around, manufacturer to distributor to customer.
Yep.
And, every company has typically been really hierarchical. Well, if the last few years haven't taught us anything else, is how's that working for you now? So from my standpoint, it's, this isn't about, a company needs leadership more than ever, I believe. But I also think that it has to be from a very different place. And by that, I mean, Dirk, I think what we've seen is really from this more of a structured and departmental mindset around how companies have operated really well. And again, there's been
success.
Yeah, this isn't like things were wrong.
Right.
So
exactly.
So it's like, there's a ton of successful companies that have worked really well.
Let me just jump in on that, because I understand what you're saying, right? We're not condemning, right? We're not. But let me just go back to this data point that I shared. What we are finding right now, we're going to publish this in June, is that 83% of us believe that how we led our organizations going into the pandemic, we must evolve from that, and we must rethink leadership going forward because of COVID and the pandemic. And let's honor the past, because the past brought us to this place. How we led brought us to right now, to give us the opportunity on this side of the pandemic. So I'm in lockstep with you, right? This need to really think as deeply about how we lead going forward as we think about digital transformation, sales models, and the like. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but our data is proving out what you're saying here.
No, I think you're spot on. And if you take a look at that, what this means is, and again, just to tie it in with what we're talking about, and one of the reasons why we're integrating the the sales, the digital, and the data analytics into the conference that we're doing is it's about cross-functional teams and collaboration and working together in very different ways than even a few years ago. And for that, I think you need very different skill sets.
Yes.
But you also need a different kind of leadership that's going to make it really work. Now, I think this is going to sound a little bit old school to some people, but in the 1980s and into the 90s, before I shifted all my focus onto MDM in 1993 or so, I had a marketing communications business in Minneapolis, St. Paul. One of my clients was Toro, the company Toro, lawnmower, snowblowers, all that stuff. There was a gentleman there, and I'm sorry, I'm going to forget his name, but the leader of that company talked about servant leadership. He wrote a book, and I don't remember I don't know if you remember this, Dirk, but it really was about, at that time, it was a pretty radical concept in terms of the CEO of a large company really talking about, sort of humility, about finding ways to really support the leaders and growing the leaders underneath that under his charge to really make every person in that organization feel like they were making a difference every single day. And there's a lot of small things to that. I mean, a lot of, it's, but the core concept was really around, this isn't about sitting up there and going rah rah and, win-win for the team and all that. It was really about real connection, finding ways to really build relationships and bring people together around the relationship. And Dirk, I know you talk a lot about distribution companies as families, and essentially this was a very parallel, very similar concept. So I'm a big believer in that, and I think we've kind of come full circle in a lot of ways to this is really the form of leadership that's going to be the most powerful going forward.
100%. So thank you, Ted Stark. It was Ken Melrose, former CEO, right? There you go, right? I was trying to pull it out as well. So thanks, Ted. So Tom, I got to tell you something. Season 2 of We Supply America. We are going to go out and champion the noble calling of distribution again, but the nuance this year is we're going to look at leadership because of what you just said. And my terminology right now is I believe that leadership has evolved from controlling to managing to leading to what I'm calling the noble generation of leadership. And we're going to be redefining that and talking about that going forward. And at the heart of it was this premise that came out of last year is that we have to go back to the humanity of business. And I hope that's going to be a lasting legacy of COVID, of the pandemic, to help leaders double down on what you just talked about, this servant leadership, this humanity. And I'm really buoyed by this research that's going on right now, Tom, and what we have found. And again, we're going to be reporting this in June. But what we're finding is that 93% of us as leaders in distribution believe that the human element is going to play an important role in leadership in a post-pandemic world. And I think this is worthy of a conversation all summer long. What does that mean, right? What does that look like? You use words like humility and empathy, and there's much more to it, and relationships and the like. And I think it's something that we just absolutely have to double down on. And thank you for helping us lead the charge on that.
So the point I want to
Please
tag on to your thoughts there, Dirk, is that this is really about creating competitive advantage going forward.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that if, I think we're already seeing that more traditional hierarchical structure of leadership in companies
You bet.
isn't working the way it used to, because you're not getting the people in there who are feeling like they're engaged and as creative and really are given 110% every day. And I believe that where this is going is every company is becoming a digital organization. We're all just on different places in that path
Yep.
and on that journey. I really believe for competitive advantage going forward with everything else that's going on, you have to, and again, this is a shout out to Maria Bolden of Gartner, because she talked about this in a podcast we just did. It's really this need for both a data literacy in terms of, people on your team really have to understand data. They have to understand that you have to be driven by that or informed by that. It's not everything. But then also there's this digital dexterity that she used. I like that term.
Love it.
Because if you have people who can't really manage that, and they're going to be struggling, right? Because look how we're communicating, and look how
Right.
customers want to communicate. Your team's not going to keep up. So I really think that this all combines to really try to grow a team, grow those skill sets going forward.
Without question. And then last thing, and then we're coming up against the clock time. We could continue this, but some of the beliefs we have here is that we truly believe in the independent distributor, right? In the family business. We truly believe that, we want to do everything we can to ensure that distribution remains the channel of choice. And we believe in order for that to happen, all 30,000 distributors, if that's the right number, and hundreds of thousands of branches and locations, every one of those businesses need to thrive. And in order for those businesses to thrive, what we're thinking deeply about here is that all 6 million professionals in distribution needs to thrive. And I really believe that if we've been honest with ourselves collectively, we've done good. I go back to the book that I wrote years ago for NAW, and it's all about the businesses being successful. I think there's a real opportunity for us to build on that and talk about what does it take to have all 6 million professionals, not just those that are on a leadership track within your business, but everybody from the receiving dock to the drivers to the marketers in your organization to the accounts payable. And I believe that's what servant leadership is about. I believe that's what humanity in leadership is about. And I believe that's what we're being called to do, to ensure that all 6 million individuals in distributions thrive. And you said it, that is what's going to drive a competitive advantage. We're not doing this because it's woo-woo, right? We're doing it, because it is the right thing to do for the individuals, but it provides that competitive advantage. And as I say, I am a capitalist, through and through. But I believe when we help the individuals thrive, that then leads to the businesses thriving and all that. I'll give you the last word, Tom. We're up against the clock. We've talked about a lot of things. Just your last thoughts on everything that we've talked about here. I'd love to hear.
And I'm still working on your technical term woo-woo.
Right?
No, I think the takeaway, it's, Dirk, you and I have, it's really, I feel like some of the things we talked about are kind of wonky, but at the same time, it's like, and it was the one comment here, unless we can take a step back and look in instead of just being in the trenches and in the lanes that we work every single day, I think it's really hard to get that space. Some of the best advice I've ever had in my life is somebody said, carve out an hour every day. I think I do this actually. And read, do something that's not related to just, getting money in the door and figuring out what has to be done today. Do something, push yourself, and that's the best advice. I think that's for all of us. So, I guess that's my takeaway. And I think that's what our conversation has been today. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it. And I think that's what these Thursday Unapologetic Lives do. I think that's when we bookmark MDM and start our day with that, right? To get those ideas. I think that's when we register to come and join you in the great program you're putting together. Shift in September is all designed to do. So Tom, Gail, thanks so much for joining us, man. We could continue to go on. Guys, would you do me a favor, everybody? Would everybody just put it in the comments, your appreciation for Tom and what he is sharing, and just let's show Tom our love and appreciation for what he has given to us. And Tom, just before you go, and then I'll say goodbye. I mean, Gary says digital dexterity. He's going to steal it from you. Ted Stark says his mind is racing. You've exceeded his expectations. And I know that we're going to be getting some more as you sign off. So Tom, thanks so much for joining us, man. Let's do it again, okay?
Always great. Thanks, Dirk.
You bet. Thank you, bud. Thanks.
Take care.
Yeah, you bet. You too. So guys, just an amazing conversation. I want to zero in on the last thing that Tom said as well, to build in that discipline, to take an hour a day or so to think, to work on the business rather than in the business, if you don't mind. And one of the great aha moments I had around that topic was when I was sitting in the boardroom of Gray Bar with Kathy Mazzarella, the CEO of the business, and just a great leader, a great human being. And she was kind enough to be on my podcast. And one of the things she said when she became CEO of the company, her mentor, one of the key things her mentor said was to block off time in the week to do what Tom said. And she gave me the analogy that what she does is on Friday afternoon, she blocks off the time she did back then, and she goes to local Starbucks, puts in her music, pulls out her journal, and thinks. And I think that's what Tom was saying. And I think it's something that we all can do. So again, Tom, Gail, thanks so very, very much for joining us, you guys. And let me bridge what Tom just talked about relative to this current research that's going on here at Unleash WD and second season of We Supply America. So we are in the midst of this research that we're going to be publishing in June, you guys, and I'm really excited about it. I believe it's going to be landmark. I believe it's going to drive new conversation, important conversation throughout distribution. And I've given you some of the data. Let me just give you 4 data points. Again, you've seen, I think, 2 of these or 3. And here's what we're learning right now. 77% of us believe that the very nature of leadership is changing as a result of COVID and these other forces. We got to think deeply about it. 83% believe that we have to lead our organizations differently coming out of the pandemic than we were going in. I shared this with you that 93% of us believe that the human element is going to play an important role going forward. And 95% believe that the need to pioneer and innovate is going to play an important role going forward. And everything that Tom Gail shared with us today was all about that pioneering and innovating and thinking differently. He used the words, even disrupt ourselves going forward. And we all see the importance of that. So we're going to be going out on the road again in about 30 days. And you guys, I am absolutely jazzed to do that, to carry this forward, this conversation forward, and to champion the noble calling of distribution. So what I would really encourage, I would absolutely appreciate what you all do is go to our new website at wesupplyamerica.com, and you'll find the story there of what we are doing, how we're championing this noble calling of distribution. Coming out of last year, the feature films are there. We've got learning centers of research reports, ebooks coming out of it, all free for you to carry this conversation going forward. And I would really appreciate and encourage you to go there. Now, here's one of the exciting points for me. Guys, I'm going out on the road in about 30 days, and we've sectioned the country into 5 different sections. And starting in June through August, we're going to go out and meet with distributors like you and create experiences for you. Last year, we stopped at 34. Guys, we haven't even left, and we've already been invited into 29 different distribution businesses. This is going to be an epic, epic summer, championing the noble calling of distribution, and I really would love you and your business to be a part of it. With each stop, each time we pull the RV into a distribution business, it's a stop that we create an experience with you to showcase your people, to help your people feel part of something bigger, to champion your part in this noble calling of distribution. And it truly is a unique, memorable, engaging experience to spark your team in the summer. And it's just so cool as we get involved to see your employees thinking big and boldly and understanding their role in in creating what we have in this society by the nature of your distribution business. Seeing individuals in the warehouse, wearing the We Supply America, and bringing them together, talking about what you're doing as an organization, as one together. I have the chance to get into the business, meet with individuals, remind them and learn from them about what they do. We pull the RV right up to your business, and it truly is cool. And there is usually, no, not usually, there's always a meal involved where we bring everybody together, and it's just a great, great experience. One of the things we do is we end with the We Supply America cheer to remind everybody that you and your people are part of this noble calling distribution. Let me just show you one of these stops cheers that happened down at CK Supply down in St. Louis last year, and you just it kind of shows the energy there. Just take a look here.
Second of all,
There we go. Here.
Come on.
There we go. Hold on.
so
That's a company model right there.
Oh my God.
So-
Coming out the minute
So, you know how I said the spirit was pretty good? I was going to say, but it's certainly the best looking group, and I was going to acknowledge the ladies in front. But I got to tell you something. The game has just been upped. All right, sir, what is your name?
Rob.
Rob, okay, guys, this one's for Rob. This one's for Rob. You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. 3, 2. Rob, put your legs down. Guys, I have loved my day here at CK. Thanks so much for having me.
So it is just a great, great experience that we have with your people. And here's the thing. Again, you can find out all about it, how you can leverage the tour stop by going to WeSupplyAmerica.net. And here's we not only have a great experience, but you have the opportunity to leverage this stop for internal and external communications. Let me just give you 3 examples of that, okay? Last year, we stopped at Camo, a Jansan distributor down in Augusta, Georgia, and they actually got the local news to come out and talk about the We Supply America tour, stopping at their business and what it means to their business in the local community. And here's the that clip from the local news.
Local businesses is about to get some screen time. Camo just chosen from distribution companies nationwide to be featured in a new series called We Supply America. The idea is to highlight the most innovative and purpose-driven distribution businesses across the U.S. We spoke with the president of Camo today, who says they can't wait to tell their story.
We've been in business almost 75 years, and so we've got a unique story to tell. We're extremely involved in our community, and it means a lot to be able to be shown as one of those companies throughout, America that we supply America.
And you can watch We Supply America on the series website, WeSupplyAmerica.net. We've also been reaching out to find out when Camo's episode will air live, and we'll keep you posted when we find out.
So again, it's pretty cool where you can use this momentum and this movement of We Supply America to get your message out to your market, to your community, and the like. Some organizations actually use their internal or external video crews as we come in. As I say, use me while we're there to help tell your story. Tom talked about a common terminology. We all have common terminology. We have a culture that we're proud of, if you don't mind. And how do we communicate that internally and externally? Well, we can use We Supply America to help drive that conversation. And great independent electrical distributor in St. Louis by the name of Holt had just gone through what I believe is a very cool, effective, needed rebranding that talks about being proud about being the middleman and what the middleman does. And right as they were rebranding, they invited us in and they tied it all together with this sizzle reel. Take a look at what they produce. It's very cool.
Ryan thanked me for us selecting Holt, but in reality, Holt selected We Supply America.
There's no shame in what we do. We're proud of it. We're here, we're trying, we're working as hard as we can to make solutions out in the field.
So again, the possibilities are absolutely endless, and the energy, the excitement, the ability to use the tour stop and We Supply America to help communicate your message internally and externally is really cool. Let me just give you one other example. And that's, we had a great stop last year on the Mississippi River in Davenport, Iowa, with Republic Companies, HVAC and electrical. And we had an amazing day there, interacting with the people, learning and listening. At the same time, championing the noble calling distribution with their people. And their internal marketing team did amazing work, and they created a series of 5 videos that they have shared both internally and externally with their customers and their suppliers. Let me just show one of those real quick. It's about 1.5 minutes. Here you go.
The work we do is honorable. It's very honorable, right?
Damn straight.
Yeah,
Damn straight.
It's a good profession. If you need any more motivation, think about the 85 families that we're getting up every morning trying to support. That gives you a lot of motivation.
Without question.
Yeah.
You know, the 85 families, the way I look, I was telling the others too, it's your contractors. These are independent.
Yeah.
Family, they have dreams, they have goals, they've risked everything. Oh, you guys made big bets during the pandemic. Right?
Yeah.
To bring inventory in.
You have to have innovation to be relevant to your customers.
No question.
And if you don't listen and you don't ask good questions and respond to their needs, you become irrelevant really quick. For me, the smaller, independent, being able to be more nimble, that fits me better than the larger, more bureaucratic type of organization.
You know, when you look at the RV, the red banner says championing the noble calling of distribution, right? Mm-hmm. What you do is honorable. It is noble. So guys, it's just super cool. And I in about 30 days, we're going to get back out on the road. And last year there were 34 different stops. This year we've already been invited into 29. Man, I'd love to be at a different business every single day, meeting, talking, helping share your story, both internally and externally. Just some of the thoughts from some of those businesses that brought us in last year. Here's Paul Kennedy, the CEO of DSG. And you see what he says up there. He says, I don't think anyone has been able to articulate what distributors do like you do on this tour. We felt we needed to be a part of it. And it was great to have DSG be a part of it. Here's Jim Banovich with Marsh Electronics in Milwaukee. He said the engagement with the employees was fantastic. To showcase our purpose and what we do at Marsh meant so much to our people. You know, Tom talked about the humanity of the business, right? And focusing on the people and ensuring that the individuals understand the role and the importance of what they do. It's part of the conversation we have. Here's Katie Palin Seymour, CEO of First Supply. She said, having this stop here was just an opportunity we couldn't pass up. Today was about supporting our team, their dreams, and letting them see that they're part of something bigger. It reminds me of Mike Meadart, the CEO of Meadart Distributing. He told me years ago that distributors need to relearn how to dream the dream again. And I love what Katie said there. Today, the stop of We Supply America was to focus on our people, help them focus on their dreams and the importance of what they do. I can't wait. I cannot wait. Have I said that yet? I cannot wait to get back out on the road. So all the information there is at WeSupplyAmerica.net. You can go there and jump to the tour page there up on the menu. When you jump to that tour page, all of the details are there about what a typical day looks like when we stop in, where we're going to be and when. It talks about how you can create an experience for your people. And as I say, you guys, use us while we're there. And here are some of those examples that I showed that you can share internally with your team. So I'd really encourage you to do that. So you guys, I have again gone past an hour. Thanks for hanging in there with us. One more time, I'd like to thank our guest, Tom Gale. Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Let me just see if I can see this real quick before I go. Tom, you impacted a ton of people. Tom Crawford said, thanks, Tom. You've been outstanding. I would absolutely agree. Will, thank you for being here, man. Excellent conversation, he said. LinkedIn user, I believe that's Chris, said thank you. Peggy, thank you. Outstanding. Thank you both. If individuals thrive, businesses thrive. Love it. Absolutely. So thank you so much. And Craig and Tom, I see other comments in there. We're up against the clock, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Next Thursday, we've got a great webinar on this whole obliterating the myth that distributors don't add value. And we're going to blow that apart with some great guests. So everybody, thanks for joining us. Let me end with the trailer for season 2 one more time. And we will see you out on the road, everybody. Thanks. In a post-pandemic world, leadership is being redefined. Forces outside of our control and forces within our business are calling us to be different leaders. Both new and veteran leaders throughout distribution are showing the way forward. These leaders are the noble generation. These leaders we need to meet. These leaders we need to learn from. These leaders are why we are going back on the road this summer. This is We Supply America, Season 2.